You're listening to Chuck Cash on the radio.
Stop it.
Chuck Cash is on the radio. What? Chuck Cash on the radio? Yes, Chuck Cash is on the radio. He's on the radio now.
How do and welcome to the Chuck Cash Radio Show. Over the next 30 minutes we'll be taking a look back at the top stories and events in the week beginning Monday the 7th of January. After a weekend that saw President al-Assad make a rare appearance in Syria, Gerard Depardieu become a Russian citizen, and Newcastle see the magic of the FA Cup disappear like fog on the Tyne on a hot spring morning. President al-Assad makes a rare appearance in Syria as he addresses an audience in Damascus and sounding unrelenting, much like the Mad Hatter would at his last tea party. The US dismisses al-Assad, saying that he's detached from reality, although many spectators around the world feel that 2013 will be the year that President al-Assad and reality become reacquainted.
On the radio now.
Gerard Depardieu becomes an honorary Russian citizen in response to his very public row with French leader François Hollande over the government's taxation policies for high earners. Missing a drink-drive court date back in Paris, instead he visits the Soviet Union to receive his Russian passport, delivered personally by Vladimir Putin. Putin tells the French actor he'd be welcome to set up home in Mordovia, a place more famous for its many institutions and prison facilities. President Hollande tells Depardieu he'd be welcome back in France, at many of its many institutions or prison facilities.
On the radio now.
Newcastle are the big Premiership scalp of the weekend, as for another year the magic of the FA Cup disappears for the Geordie boys. The FA Cup also gave Liverpool striker Luis Suarez the perfect opportunity to take a break from irritating his fellow Premiership players, by instead pissing off players from the lower league club of Mansfield Town. At Downing Street, David Cameron and Nick Clegg introduced the coalition's mid-term dead horse flogging review statement and insist they remain a One Direction party. By One Direction party, I'm assuming they mean a lightweight novelty act voted in by a desperate British public. They both say they remain committed. Oh, if only they were. It's a Rod and Seal deal, says David Cameron. It does what it says on the tin. You know what else it says on the tin, David? Ideal for glossing over cracks, hazardous and not for human consumption. But sadly, on your imaginary tin, there's still no sign of an expiry date.
On the radio now.
Changes to the child benefit rules come into effect on Monday, where households earning more than £50,000 a year will have some of their benefits removed, and those who are earning £60,000 and over will lose all their child benefit altogether, forcing many of them to glimpse what life might be like earning slightly less than £60,000 a year. There's uproar from those earning around £60,000 a year, and those on or below the average UK income remain silent. And those on or below the poverty line, who are about to lose disability and other benefits, bite their lips just a little bit harder. In Northern Ireland, the latest righteous sectarian cause, the waving or not waving of a flag, sees dozens of police injured and now over 100 arrested, after the 6th consecutive night of violence in Belfast city centre, as police clash with loyalists and Republicans, or as they're better known in the rest of the world, morons and children.
On the radio now.
Lionel Messi has been voted Ballon d'Or World Footballer of the Year for 2012 season and for the 4th year in a row, although at the ceremony he was dressed more in the style of Lionel Blair. Many call the midfielder the little magician, which might explain why he chose to wear an outfit better suited for a Las Vegas conjurer when receiving his award.
I said, here's Chuck Cash is on your radio now.
David Bowie surprises the world of music, releasing a single and promising his first album in over a decade. Bowie, who had to cancel his last tour due to ill health, only ever releases music when he has something to say, as opposed to something to sell, say music critics. So what words of wisdom did David impart on his 66th birthday release? Well, the first single from a 17-track album due in March is a haunting retrospective piece entitled Where are we now? A reflection of a career in the music business that began 40 years ago in Berlin, Germany. Or it's the signs of early onset dementia if the follow-up releases are Who Am I Now? What Am I Doing Here? And These Aren't My Slippers.
The Chuck Cash Show. The Chuck Cash Show. So here we go with another show. Some bits are funny, others not so much. For those who tune in, I thank you very much. So stay in touch with the Chuck Cash Show.
On Tuesday in the House of Commons, ministers debated and approved the government's proposed new benefit cap. This is where those who receive benefits will now be expected to wear a cap with the word Skyver written on the front of it. Labour calls the benefits cap nothing more than a hit-and-run raid on working families and say they would do things differently. Labour, of course, preferring the strategy of running first, then confessing on a post-it note and leaving it in an empty purse. And Chicago in America, the body of a lottery winner who died from an unanticipated heart attack the day after his $1 million lottery cheque cleared, is to be exhumed because a relative has some suspicions of foul play. Yeah, he died of an unanticipated heart attack the day after his $1 million lottery cheque cleared? Duh. I'd imagine right about now, Quincy must be spinning in his freshly dug grave.
On the radio now.
Wednesday and the BAFTA nominations are announced. Lincoln leads the way with 10 Best Film nominations, and sharing 9 apiece, Les Miserables and Life of Pi. I haven't yet seen Life of Pi, but I did read the book, and not once did it mention a pie or pies of any description. So food lovers might not find the film as much fun as it sounds. Whereas, as far as I can remember, Les Miserables is as miserable as it sounds. Oscar frontrunner Lincoln, the critics' favourite, stars Daniel Day-Lewis and is the biography of an American president who fights to end slavery but gets shot and turned into a statue. It sounds hilarious. The BAFTA ceremony is due to take place next month.
You're listening to Chuck Cash on the radio.
Stop it.
Chuck Cash is on the radio. What? Chuck Cash? On the radio? Yes, Chuck Cash is on the radio. He's on the radio now.
Private probation services are being introduced for low and medium risk offenders, say the government. A pay-by-results method is being offered to volunteer services and private companies, assisting those leaving prison to get re-established into the workforce and back into their communities. Justice Secretary Chris Grayling, who, when he was Employment Minister, designed the Failed Work programme last year, is the architect of the scheme and now entrusted with recently released inmate services and general public safety. As for the persistent reoffenders, well, G4S is one of the private security companies expected to administer the services.
Chuck Cash is on the radio. What? Chuck Cash? On the radio? Yes, Chuck Cash is on the radio. He's on the radio now.
Former racing pundit John McCririck is seeking £3 million in damages after being dropped by the channel last year. In light of the Savile revelations, Channel 4 could be accused of possibly jumping the gun a little, and jumping to the same conclusions most of us probably did. Shuffles papers. Moving on. The government are forced to announce phase 2 of the Coalition Midterm Dead Horse Flogging Review on Wednesday, after an advisor accidentally let slip that 70 missed mandate pledges were deliberately left out of Monday's rather polished review. So, where does this leave David Cameron's Ronseal deal now? Well, in addition to the promise of it does what it says on the tin, a proviso should be added: there's a 1 in 6 chance your tin may actually be empty. An Olympic legacy survey says that 18% of us have taken up more exercise since the Olympic Games, meaning that 4 out of 5 of us prefer to take our exercise still by walking around brand new supermarkets that now stand where school sports fields once did. A new report by the Institution of Mechanical Engineers says that 50% of the world's food produced ends up being wasted, implying that people that eat out of bins have just as much choice as those of us who acquire our food the more conventional way. The report findings also suggest that with a bit of creativity, we should be able to buy half the food we need and make it go twice as far each week. If only the store-bought fruit and veg had more than a 3-day window of freshness. I guess this is where the creativity comes in. In our household, for example, many recipes are adapted to use up the food that's going off. Tonight, for example, we had brown banana lasagna, artichoke souffle and a boiled egg smoothie. 6 prisons are set to close and another 3 to partially close and be replaced with a new super prison capable of housing 2,000 inmates. The change would save money and allow extra capacity to accommodate the expected influx of BBC entertainers of the 70s and 80s.
I said a year's Chuck Cash is on your radio now.
Yeah. These aren't my slippers.
Well, the old girl loved them cigarettes and the old man liked his grub. Soon as he picked up a fork, well, she seemed to spark one up. When she lit them up, the embers tumbled down, which made him sneeze and spit his peas all around the lounge. Faggosh and crumb, faggosh and crumb. Shield the kids with dustbin lids, where we know it might be fun. Faggosh and crumb, faggosh and crumb. Hold your nose and change your clothes, you're gonna see faggosh and crumbs. Well, the bathroom was the meanest, the smells and the dripping tap, soap on string and cotton things and a funky smelling plastic hat. Knitted doll on the toilet roll, an unused scented candle. The golden rule before you flush, don't forget to jiggle the handle. Crumbs, faggosh and crumbs. Well, hold your nose and change your clothes, you know it might be fun. Faggosh and crumbs, faggosh and crumbs. Shield the kids with dustbin lids, gonna see faggosh and crumbs. She would nod and he'd announce that we really had to leave. Shoes and kids were rounded up and arms were thrust in sleeves. Faces sacrificed, first mine and then my brother's, for a bruising tweak upon one cheek, 2 wet lips on the other. Crumbs, faggosh and crumbs. Hold your nose and change your clothes, you know it might be fun. Faggosh and crumbs, faggosh and crumbs. Shield the kids with dustbin lids, you're gonna see faggosh and crumbs. Entertaining you on the bass guitar, that fat-fingered beauty, Silver. Oh, you hot-fingered bucket, scratching and shuffling on the skins for you. It's the one and only Rooster. I've been Chuck Cash, and you've just enjoyed a Fenland blend of country rock we call crockery. Well, she tissued off the lipstick, she quelled the parting grabs. What she couldn't remove with thumbnail, she had to go with a few wet wipes. Before we climbed into the car and were driven back to town, we were dangled by our laces, briskly dusted down. Faggosh and crumbs, faggosh and crumbs. Hold your nose and change your clothes, you know it might be fun. Faggosh and crumbs, Ferguson Cross. Shield the kids with dustbin lids, we're gonna see Ferguson Cross.
Now it's time for your local news. New Ipswich Town Football Club signing Aaron McLean has criticised the state of the town shopping centre, saying it was rubbish. The 29-year-old striker, who signed on loan from Hull City last week, wrote on his Twitter account, "To say the shops are dead is an understatement." And he's from Hull. That's bad, isn't it? David Ellesmere, Labour leader of the Ipswich Borough Council, said McLean's comments were disappointing. "We've just introduced new parking deals and we spent a lot of money on the Christmas lights, so there are a lot of plans in place to make the town centre a better place." McLean later tweeted that he was buzzing to be in the town. He must really like those Christmas lights. The East Anglian discount chain Thingamybobs has been bought out by larger Norwich-based rival QD Stores. Thingamybobs has 100 staff in stores at Attleborough, Bury St Edmunds, Clacton, Ely, Felixstowe, Halstead, Haverhill, March, Newmarket and Sudbury. QD says it now has 49 outlets and a turnover of £70 million a year. Fortunately, QD say Thingamybobs could continue trading under the same name. Sadly though, QD say there's no intention of changing their name to Whatchamacallits or Ujimaflips. Rail Minister Simon Burns has denied that his chauffeur-driven car journeys into London are costing the taxpayer £80,000 a year, although they are. Mr Burns has accepted he uses the Department for Transport pool car that takes him the 35 miles from his home in Chelmsford, where he's MP, to Westminster. The Essex Rail Users Association said that's just angered all the commuters, that has. But Burns says because of the flat rate charges, he said the government's pool cars all cost £80,000 a year. Well, that's only going to annoy the commuters even more, isn't it? Especially when that money could be spent on improving the service and maybe up to a standard where even a transport minister might want to use it. That's been your local news.
I said the His Chuck Cash is on your radio now.
So, have you decided yet? Are you a striver or a skiver? Well, to help make up your mind, here's some interesting statistics that were highlighted by Zoe Williams of The Guardian this week that she discovered in a recent TUC survey. So, before you make your decision, just remember the benefits aren't just limited to those that are unemployed. No, because skivers can also be strivers as well, as 93% of new housing benefit claims are from people who have a job. 93%. This statistic says a lot about the structure of the economy, the disparity between wages and rents, the state of the housing market, and the integrity of people who go out to work in a job that doesn't even cover their rent. And then contrast that between the politicians who won't even pay their rent, even though they can afford it. So, it would seem that strivers can not only be skivers as well, but they can also be scroungers too. The survey, released by the TUC last week, highlighted the public's misconception of how public money is spent. It found, on average, people thought 41% of the entire welfare budget went to the unemployed. Well, in fact, it's just 3%. That's 3% of the public purse is spent on welfare. More alarming, I think, is the average view is that 27% of welfare budget is claimed fraudulently, when recent statistics from the Department of Work and Pensions put it more at 0.3%. Let's be clear here, Britain already has one of the least generous unemployment benefit systems in Europe, and it gets meaner each year. If you want to make sure work pays, wouldn't it be better to force up wages rather than force down benefits? Wouldn't it be easier to home people if instead you curbed private rents rather than forcing the social housing sector to raise theirs? Surely, if you want to increase the amount of money available in the public purse, wouldn't it be better to make sure people keep their jobs rather than penalising them and shaming them when they find themselves unemployed?
in an economic downturn.
I said, yes, Chuck Cash is on your radio now.
On Friday, the CPS released the full horror of the abuse committed over 50 years by the now deceased Jimmy Savile. But, unlike other news networks, I'm not going to reel off the shocking statistics like they were football scores. The only positives to come from this report are that at least now most, if not all, the victims have had chance to be heard, some institutional culpability has been highlighted, and Jimmy Savile is still deceased. Well, that's it for this week. In the week that we found out that scrivers and strivers can be united to become scrivers. You can catch me in all the usual places, Facebook, Twitter, or at my website, chuckcash.co.uk. Thanks for listening. Take care, scrivers. Good night.
I said, yes, Chuck Cash is on your radio now. Yeah. And these aren't my slippers.